Hello YouTube and welcome back one and all to episode 4 of Rosario plus Vampire. Now, I need to put this chair up. Right, okay. Just in case you couldn't get enough of the cut of my leg right here, I'll just give it a bit more. So, last time, ladies and gentlemen, when we talked about Rosario Vampire, you heard me talk about how certain problems I kind of really had to address, really was starting to creep up. In particular, last episode, if the biggest problem I had with episode 3 is that it was kind of a little bit all over the place, structure-wise, and the inconsistencies with the animation. Inconsistency is not a theme. Well, it is a theme for this show, as you're going to see. And one of the other bigger problems I did have is the knowledge that Yukari being 11 years old, and they still went the directors and that they went out of their way to do what they did with her. And Yukari is one of the main characters of the show. Well, I'll get to what I actually mean by main characters later. Well, much later anyway. So we've got episode 4 to do with ladies and gentlemen. And episode 4 is honestly, I think, the worst episode yet. Another theme you're going to notice about the show is that the decline in quality, it becomes very, very abhorrent as the episodes roll on. Some get better, some get a lot worse, but let's just get through episode 4. So, let's begin. That's 15 seconds in and they already give us that. I'm gonna try and quell my rage about the panty shots as much as possible, but they are just they become, if they weren't annoying before, then they are now, because it just tells you that they've got the animators have got nothing better to do than to just throw that in there for no reason. Those shots serve absolutely no reason. They never have, and they never will be. Well, thank goodness they were modest for Yukari. Read page 4. Okay, I'm just gonna skip through the opening, well, the title sequence. It serves no purpose, so. But because it's an anime, it has to be on the roof for inexplicably no rhyme or reason. And we get these shots again. This is just... Also, hang on. Let's do a comparison a little bit. So rewind 5 seconds. Let's see how we can do this. Okay, so 3:27. Let's do this frame by frame if we have to. Okay, so let's say that's 5.5 seconds right there of just basically Kurumu's mouth just moving for 5.5 seconds. And I don't exactly know what the frame rate of Rosario Vampire is supposed to be. I'm guessing it's possibly either Well, honestly, from what I see, I'm going to be generous and say it's a 30 FPS show. It's certainly some. There were some scenes which are obviously done a little bit, maybe a little bit faster. Maybe it's just because of the pace of things and everything in between. But if we were to say this is a 30 FPS show for 2008, so that means I need a calculator. So we're really doing this, guys, because the animation. In case you're wondering why I'm doing like the bite-sized videos of this, where basically I cut down everything about the video into what I'm ranting about, is that those are essentially the notes I'm going to be referencing when I'm writing up my official review for the show. But let's do this. So let's see. Okay, so frames per second. So 20. So 20. So let's say 30 times 5.5. So 165 frames of basically just Kurumu's mouth moving, and I'm going to go on a limb and say that realistically, to do that, it must have probably taken for the whole team involved, from Kian, from storyboard artists, from concept artists, storyboard artists, animators, and then people who work in inking, people who put the final skits together, people who compilate everything, put all that into everything in perspective. For basically the pipeline of animation it's a little bit convoluted, but those who know will know what it entails. But you're telling me 165 frames, realistically, from what I just saw from that whole sequence, that's basically 65 frames, maybe not even that. And it's shots like that are in many ways kind of a bit worse than the shots where they're just showing the back ends of characters, or when there's absolutely nothing being animated. It's a cost-saving measure, but for the eyes of an animator, these things are very easy to spot out, and it makes the product look very, very cheap. Despite the fact that this was made again by Gonzo. This is. I'll discuss these in more detail then when we get to the review itself. But we're about a seventh of our way through this episode, and I haven't even gone to the big problems in terms of writing. These are just some of my problems with the animation, and here comes problems with the writing in about 2 minutes from now. I'm not even going to address the last 6 seconds there, because to really illustrate how angry I am at this show, I'm not even doing it. But I'm as an animator myself, I am absolutely freaking out. I gotta tell you. You know what? Again, listen. I'm gonna go. Oh fuck! I'm literally gonna like play this, and I'm not gonna say a word. But if you could just go by by my facial expression, and just to show you exactly how bad this is. Because this is like me trying to impress girls' level of cringe. Just watch this. Bearing in mind, ladies and gentlemen, one of them is cheering for an 11-year-old girl. And it gets worse than that. Just put that in the back of your mind for 1 second. Let that be the beginning of your problems with this. Just let that be, if anything else, let that be the epicenter. Also, just again, the camera is almost nowhere near the level where I could see that. The only thing I could possibly assume to is either one of two things at this point. One, the cameraman is just getting any shot he can muster, or these girls' skirts are so short that just by walking they're revealing what they've got on underneath. The second is very unlikely because, again, one of them is 11 years old. I don't know how best I can put this, but that's going to turn quite a lot of people away from this. I'm going to refer this when I do the review itself, but this scene right here, you know, the problem, how I've had mixed opinions about Skune before, and how he's, despite the fact that his misogyny and other things are just like played up for a laugh, I guess. I don't quite know. The show has a very strange ideas when it comes to comedy, but it's everything else aside from that. It's, considering this is supposed to be our lead, ladies and gentlemen, I will get to explaining this in far grander detail in a long time to come, because this is just, I'll let it speak for itself when the time comes, because this entire, basically what's happened is this entire video is Skune contemplating whether he should actually stay, so basically rehashing almost the plot from the very first episode, and Skune somehow getting the idea that he should be, that he's having to rely on girls to defend him. But just keep watching and I'll explain. But this guy dry humping a picture of, if I ever have to keep ranting about this, I might just literally never come back. Let's continue. Yeah, also, a little side note, any interesting hobbies as well for these characters, anytime anything like that is introduced, it goes absolutely nowhere. I say that because there's quite a good little story in the manga that revolves around cooking, unbelievably. It's also the start of like a major plot line in the manga itself, but again, don't bother fixating on this. This goes absolutely nowhere. And speaking of things not going anywhere and rehashing things that I mentioned earlier, this next part. I wish I was joking when I showed that earlier, but that was literally nearly 10 whole seconds of just people, of just two characters walking. No backgrounds or anything like that, just these two walking. Isn't it like, I know fine well that, I know probably that, you know, they probably had like a very specific budget for this show, but what was the actual I know there's like a budget you have to like spend on an episode and, you know, everything else in between, but what's like, there should be like a minimum level for a budget, like, right, okay, like there should be like a very specific, I said okay. There should be like a very minimal amount you should actually be able to should spend on an episode. I say that because animators in Japan are also massively underpaid as they are, and then just to cut corners and everything, they do this. Also, bear in mind that one guy who just walking past. This is a problem, actually. And again, I'm sorry to bark about the animation this much, but this is another big problem that I need to state, is that when you have long periods of shots where barely anybody is moving, or you do scene-by-scene comparisons of Kumu and whoever that fat fuck was walking in the background, and there's nobody else walking, is that... And also when you get shots like this, when there's nobody around any of the other tables, when somebody does walk past, it looks incredibly out of place because it looked like he just came from a completely different show. I wish there were ways in which, I know more technical ways I could explain the problems with this show, but somehow I feel like I'm conveying more with what's wrong with it than what we actually need to know. Because what exactly is the premise of this episode? Three creepy-ish guys just decide to stalk these girls and pathetically beat up Skune, who's such a wimp he can't even just stand up for himself. That's this episode, and we're nearly halfway through this. There's barely anything to talk about. And I say that because you guys could probably guess already what's going to happen next anyway. So the ending is there's not really an ending, as your guys are about to see. Sorry to have maybe a little bit of a spoiler, but it has to be said. There is no real ending, because if you can see the ending coming, then you may as well not even have it. And again, I will explain why later. Watch the potty mouth, Yukari. And Skune Mocha nearly gives it away. That's a good... So she nearly gives the game away about Skune being human, and then just freely announces it outside. Okay, so we're halfway into this, and not really much of anything has happened. Also, I know fine well it's probably not the case, but it almost looked like his bag was called Mocha as well. That's something, I guess. Listen, I know it's meant to be Japanese folklore and everything, but at the same time, they're not particularly that intimidating. I know, again, this is down to cultural things and whatever, but I'm gonna call it as I see it, and it's not that, you know. Also, in case I haven't made this apparent before, but has it just occurred to anybody yet about how stupid these guys' plans are? Their plan is to win over the affections of Kumu, Mocha, and Yukari by beating somebody to death and also stalking after these girls in a very creepy manner. I mean, do these guys know absolutely nothing at all about how to, about things like attraction or modesty or anything like that? Dude, even I would have friggin' have known better than it would be a good idea to have not taken anybody's photograph or stared behind a pillar waiting for somebody to come out of the toilets. That's just, you don't do that shit. Because, well, one, it's creepy as hell in any context around the world. Second, it's done deliberately just to make these guys look ridiculous. And it makes Skune look even worse in a sense, because he's just almost always at these guys' mercy. And finally, well, no, I think actually that's kind of like about it. So, also bearing in mind how somehow the cameraman has got some sense of modesty by not going up their skirts this time. I mean, technically they are that as well, but at least Skune was at least just stating the first point of everything else. You can throw borderline paedophilic in there as well, but in fact, but nothing. It is what it is. What it is. Please be alive. such prophetic words. Or that. We didn't even get a know your place. It's just a get lost losers. That what kind of badass finishing line is that? That line, that line as well. I'm going to just rewind it just to give you an idea what it says, and I'll give you it word for word. I'm going to find a way to make myself stronger to protect you and everyone else. I'm not going to say what's wrong with that line, because everything is wrong with that line. Because of what? Because of... I'm not going to say anything, but prepare to be very, very disappointed. Shot for shot, almost the first beginning of the episode as well. Okay, thank God for that, that's over. I'm not interested, alright? Get lost. Okay. Somehow, ladies and gentlemen, the episode is only 24 minutes long, and I managed to talk for I managed to nearly double that with everything I had to say, because, guys, this episode was bad. Because I know I've been ranting for long enough, I'm just going to go over everything that's wrong with this episode. So, Skune is still pretty much almost not really changed, he's changed other people. I'll commend him for that. He's changed other people, but he himself is not changed. He's still wallowing in wallowing about how it's... I don't even think it's the fact that he thinks he's weak. It's the fact that he has to be protected by girls, but that's also a bit of a problem I could take up there with some other things. The animation also is really now beginning to really kind of get on my nerves, because the way they're cutting corners is so straight. It's so blatant for the world to see that anyone who's not even familiar whatsoever with anything at all regarding animation could work out that they cut corners here and there, and the villains of the week are not really villains because they're that pretty flimsy, and Skune could have done more. I mean, there was that part where Skune did stand up to them, but it wasn't much. He didn't say a great deal. You would have expected something like a little bit more profound out of Skune. But as far as we could work out, almost Mocha did all the talking for him when he said that they were now quote unquote even. And at that final line where Skune said he was going to get stronger in the future to find a way to protect other people, don't even begin to think that promises anything in the future. In fact, don't think it means anything for what we're going to see, because the very next episode, ladies and gentlemen, I kid you not, we'll take that and we'll completely shit all over it. I am not even joking. If this episode was bad, the episode that immediately follows it is worse. And then the episode after that is worse, but for a completely different reason. So, while trying to keep my... You see, one of the reasons why I'm on my very low sugar diet and I'm trying to like reduce my heart rate is that I've got a lot of and a lot of things I want to unleash upon some of the things I've noticed and some of the things I've seen, because kind of like Jim Cornette, I'm just not going to tolerate bullshit anymore. And sometimes I will look at something and I won't hold back my opinions. Sometimes I think there are just too many things out there that are just bullshit, and people don't like bullshit. That's quite, it's just out there, and it is what it is. So get ready for more and more They should call this Bullshit and Vampire. That's the name of this anime from now on. Bullshit plus Vampire. English dub. So anyway, I hope you guys have enjoyed this reaction video. Please leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section down below. Let me know what you thought about episode 4. If anything, well, maybe you enjoyed it. I did not enjoy this. Please make sure to also like and subscribe to get daily notes, and I'll see all you guys again for episode 5. Right as soon as I have some water or something. I need to clear my throat. See you later.